I used to be a plain, ordinary film critic, but somehow weird stuff started happening around me. I found a childhood toy who rules an underground kingdom from out of my basement. I got a weird AI friend living in my TV. I fought a giant straight out of a kid's storybook and met a magical winter elf. But right now, I'm being forced to complete a checklist of TV and movie genres so I can save all of existence with the power of snarky film commentary. Willie to all available crew. Please report to the basement.
I'm always in the basement.
But you can transfer your main consciousness into almost any computerized device.
Yeah, but I'm not able to get into any cool computers. You know, the real cool ones. NORAD, Area 51, the neighbor's Apple IIe. So I just hang out down here.
I'm here.
What's the big emergency?
Emergency? There's no emergency. It's time to watch Star Trek.
Really? You interrupted my time to play Goat Simulator 3 for that.
Fine, I guess I'll watch it alone then.
I'll watch it with you. But that's because I'm forced to. I don't have a choice.
I'm in too.
Are you sure? Enterprise Season 1 ended on a cliffhanger.
No problemo. I was going to recap anyway. Okay, last time, Archer and company went down to this planet in a shuttle pod. Because of something in their atmosphere, they were supposed to be very careful. They were, but still, boom! Kentucky Fried Planet. Archer gets all mopey. Until the mysterious time-traveling operative Mr. Daniel shows up. He says, hey, that didn't happen because of something you did. In fact, it wasn't supposed to happen at all. He helps them steal evidence to clear their name. But then, Silik the Suliban shows up. He demands to take Archer prisoner for that robbery they just pulled off. Archer says, okie dokie, but then he disappears. Daniels takes him to the future. Only something went wrong. Daniels' future no longer seems super utopian even by Star Trek standards. In fact, it looks like post-war Dresden. It seems to have been that way for centuries. So they don't have time portals to send Archer home. And thus our story continues as T'Pol just invites Silik and his soldiers on board. The rest of the bridge crew are not happy about this. T'Pol says, does anyone have any better ideas? I didn't think so. So unless one of you can come up with something by the time Russell Watson finishes singing Faith of the Heart, that's what we're gonna do. Archer and Daniels are in Baltimore. I mean the 30th century. Archer says, look, I know this isn't the best time to ask a question, but if your future no longer happened, how do you still exist? Daniel says, damned if I know. I'm basically a temporal mall cop. If I was any good at my job, do you think either of us would be here? He sighed, I'm sorry. You want to help? Fine, go look for the library. It should be over that way someplace. Over by the big monument. Archer says, this is San Francisco. There are lots of monuments. Can you be more specific? Daniel says, the one to the United Federation of Planets. Archer says, "What's that?" Daniel says, "Just forget I said anything." They find the library pretty quick. Daniel seems surprised that a library would have zillions of books. It turns out in the 30th century that he remembers, the library is a huge server farm with data from almost every planet in the galaxy. He says, "Okay, now all we gotta do is find the history section." Back in 2152, Silic and the Suliban soldiers scour the ship. The first thing they do is find their data disks. They do some scanning and discover they haven't been copied. Other soldiers come up to the bridge. They say they've looked everywhere, but they can't find Archer. But their tricorder did detect some sort of weird energy thing in the turbolift.
Well, let me guess. It's emporified ambulance.
If you mean temporal anomalies, yeah. This tells Silic all he needs to know. He asked Paul, "Hey, last time I was here, Archer mentioned something about a temporal Cold War. What's that all about?" She says, "Ugh, it's delusional nonsense. He thinks his former steward, Mr. Daniels, is a secret agent from the future, which doesn't really matter since you killed him." Silic says, "Just to be on the safe side, I'm going to shut down all communications apart from the line between engineering and the bridge, then confine you all to quarters." Trip tries putting up some resistance, but on Earth, Zaval is talking to Admiral Forrest. Zaval says, "Hey, wasn't Enterprise recalled? My guys were supposed to pick up T'Pol and Phlox 3 days ago, and they never showed." Forrest replies, "But that was before they found evidence to prove their innocence." Zaval says, "If they have evidence, why did they dock with a bunch of ships and disappear?" Forrest asks, "What kind of ships?" Zaval says, "I don't know. You know how it is, long-range sensors, nebulas. I can find out once my guys go in there." Forrest pauses and says, "On what authority? Archer doesn't work for you." Zaval says, "But T'Pol does." The Enterprise is docked with the Jetsons' house all decked out for Christmas. Silic and Lackey number 6 are in the living room trying to call Future Guy. The goon says, his last message said to destroy the Enterprise. Don't you think we should do that? Silic says, no, he wants Archer. If Archer isn't there and really has gone to the future, don't you think he'd want to know that? The goon says, well, the last time we thought for ourselves, we got punished, so no. Silic says, I have a better idea. Let's prep the Vulcan for surgery. At the library, Archer and Daniels are having trouble finding books about the Federation. Daniel says, I don't think we're gonna find anything. All these history books seem correct up until the 22nd Century Warp 5 program. After that, poof! Archer says, what? Why? Daniels replies, long story. There's a show you should watch. Paramount Plus is better about password sharing than most streaming services, so you can log into my account. It's 4 seasons long, and most of it is pretty good. Apart from the second season. Archer says, well then, can you explain this book to me? The Romulan Star Empire? Daniel says absolutely not. With the future knowledge in that book, you could cause some serious disruptions in time. Holy fish, that's it. They weren't interested in the Paragons, or even their data disks. They wanted you. Removing you from play would cause massive disruptions in time. Bringing you here has only caused the very thing I was trying to prevent. The only way to fix it is to get you home.
And we know that'll work out well.
Archer says, how do you plan on doing that? Can you build a time machine out of a bicycle? Daniel says, don't be stupid. To build a time machine, you need either a 1960s British police call box or a DeLorean. We don't have either of those, so... Wait, if we take your communicator and your tricorder and can find a good conductor... Well, you'll see. Back in normal time, Paul is strapped to a dentist chair with a shock collar. Silic starts interrogating her. At first, he gets the whole name, rank, serial number, and the Vulcan Science Directorate has determined that time travel is impossible thing. He pumps her full of Crystal Pepsi, and she reveals everything she knows about Daniels. Reed is in his quarters. He starts hearing this staticky sound. It turns out that Trip realized that when the Suliban shut down all communications, they forgot about the redundant backup system in the doorbells. Through engineering magic, he can talk to anyone on the deck. He hasn't managed to locate DePaul yet, but when they do, they can start making a plan. Daniel thinks his thingamabob is ready for testing. He just needs to know the time on Enterprise and Archer's watch. That way he can sync the signal up with after they left. Archer asks, wouldn't it be better to send the signal back before that? We could warn ourselves. I could, and I'm just spitballing here, set right what once went wrong? Daniel says, don't be fucking stupid. The Suliban simply throw DePaul into her quarters. She gets up, goes to the bathroom to wash up, and then collapses from exhaustion. She doesn't even notice the flickering hologram hovering above her bed, even when it says, DePaul, this is Captain Archer. It becomes a Dave's not here, man, sort of thing, until she opens her eyes. Archer states, according to Mr. Daniels, this signal won't last long. So, here's the plan. The crew have their conference call at the doorbell. Trip says, we can't access the locks, so we're stuck. The writers remember Travis exists this week. He says, why don't we try the EPS tunnels? Reed replies, no full-grown person can fit in there. Apart from maybe Hoshi. She says, damn it, Malcolm. I'm a translator, not an HVAC specialist. And yet, she goes up there anyway. Everything about this setup, from the costume to the enclosed space to the hard lighting and obstacles in her path, look like they were specifically designed to show off actress Linda Park's assets.
So, you're telling me it's like if Michael Bay was brought in to direct a female Die Hard reboot?
That exists in my time. Sophia Lillis is in the Bruce Willis role. Tatiana Maslany takes over for Alan Rickman, and Candice Patton replaces Reginald Vell Johnson.
I have no idea how to respond to that, so let's just move on. She makes her way to sickbay and picks up a hypo spray from Phlox, then makes her way to Reed's quarters. Her claustrophobia kicks in and she wants out of that tube fast. So, of course, her tank top would just happen to snag on the hatch and slide off on the one day she decides not to wear a bra. She enters the room looking like this. Well, not exactly like that. Funny thing, YouTube is making me blur the image, and it makes it even less advertiser friendly. Uh, Those, um, those are her arms. The next thing we know, DePaul is wandering around the halls muttering to herself in order to trick the guards into thinking she's still drugged. When they grab her, Trip and Reed show up, beat the shit out of them, and steal their phasers. They drag them into another room. Trip says, Hoshi, you and Travis stay here. If these two wake up, sedate them. The rest of us have stuff to do that's important to the plot. Reed goes to Daniels' quarters. He phases his hand through a hidden compartment and pulls out the iPad that Daniels left behind. Then he up and leaves. Maybe he shouldn't have spent the time to relock the room, because that's how the Suliban catch him. Silik starts working him over. He asks, what does this thing do? Reed says, I don't know. Before he left, Captain Archer told me to destroy it. But thanks to you guys, I've been working a triple shift. Silik asks, why would he want you to destroy it? Reed says, I don't know. Maybe he thought you could call someone with it. Silik orders Reed returned to his quarters. But while all that was going on, Trip and T'Pol have gone down to the engine room and done something to the antimatter flow that's causing all kinds of problems. The goons try to give Silik their status report, but
That man is playing Galaga. He thought we wouldn't notice, but we did.
the goon says, sir, whatever's going on with the warp drive, if we don't get the Enterprise out of here, she's gonna blow and take us with it. Silik says, yeah, whatever. You take care of it. I'm going to stay on the station and try to contact the boss. So the little cell ships turn on their tractor beams and tug the Enterprise a safe distance away. The moment they let go, Travis puts the pedal to the metal. The whole warp drive overload was a fake out. Now they can take the battle to the Suliban. Meanwhile, Silik finally contacts Future Guy. He starts groveling and apologizing for all the mistakes he made on this mission. Only one tiny little problem. It's not Future Guy, it's...
David Miscavige.
No.
It's the little girl from the Morton salt package.
No. It's time-traveling Captain Archer. And he kicks his ass. He says, you use your Suliban Cabal powers, and I kill you. You don't hand over those data disks I stole, and I kill you. If you don't recall those ships,
They'll cuff and kill him.
got it in one. And just for good measure, he destroys both Talk to the Future machines. Too bad the Enterprise is still getting pounded. Trip asks, hey, Hoshi, any word from the Vulcans yet? She says, nope. T'Pol orders a course change, but the Suliban are coming harder than a MAGA cultist listening to Jason Aldean. Right before the shields fail, the ships stop. At first, they think they must be getting close to the Vulcan ship, but no. one of the Suliban cell ships is transmitting a Starfleet transponder code. It's Archer. T'Pol hails the cell ship. She asks why they've stopped. Archer says it might have something to do with the fact that I'm holding Silik as a prisoner of war. Archer gets back on board and calls Earth. Forrest is happy to see them. Saval says this time travel stuff is bullshit, but the rest of the data you transmitted seems to check out. Archer says, so we're free to go? Saval says, no. In the year you've been out there, you've been involved in a dozen armed conflicts, you've increased hostilities between the Vulcans and the Andorians, and you destroyed our sacred monastery. T'Pol says, we went over this last season. The Andorian thing is on you. Not you as in the Vulcan government. You as in you. You were the one who chose to weaponize our sacred site. All Captain Archer did was let Colonel Shran know about it. Archer chimes in, plus, Cabal Suliban? Bad guys. The civilian Suliban I rescued were arrested and held without trial for the crime of breathing while Suliban. Saval leaves in the most early 2000s way possible. An emo huff. Admiral Forrest says, yeah, I think I'm going to need to have a long talk with Vulcan High Command. We'll pick this up later. Around 3 in the morning, Archer walks into T'Pol's quarters. I guess since he's the captain, he can just sort of do that? She wakes up and he says, hey T'Pol, thanks. You made Ambassador Saval look like an ass in front of all the brass on Earth, so I get to keep my job. And that's it. That's the episode. Okay, rat wrap time. And sit tight, folks, because this is going to be the longest one of these we've had in quite a while. Maybe since the last time I reviewed Enterprise.
You see, when it comes to talking about Star Trek, we can't get you to shut the hell up. I really do hope that changes in the future.
Good luck with that. When I come from, Jess is the official head of the state seat of the Paramount-sponsored Church of the Great Bird of the Galaxy. It's an official fan club that pretends to be a religion for tax purposes.
Anyway, when I review full seasons, I tend to do one good episode, 1 or 2 mediocre episodes, and 1 bad one. This episode is, well, it's not awful. The story is well constructed. The dialogue is good. The acting is quite solid. All the ingredients are there for a really good episode. It even ties up some loose ends from the previous season. Many of which, as luck would have it, were ones I reviewed last year.
Luck. You planned it.
Kiddo, if you hang around long enough, you'll learn that Jess does his best work when he doesn't have any idea what's going on and plans out nothing.
Hopefully, I'll remember to link those episodes, or maybe even the entire Star Trek playlist, down in the description. And if I don't, you can blame a certain AI for not reminding me.
Hey,
This episode had a lot of flaws that I didn't notice the first time I saw it.
when was that?
September 18th, 2002. I didn't watch Enterprise regularly back then, but this one I saw in first run 3 times. I watched it that night, I watched it again on the DC area station's Saturday replay, and then again on the Baltimore station's Sunday night replay. Somehow, this scene is the only one that stuck with me. What can I say? I was 22. As we all know, most 22-year-old straight hetero males are dicks. Even back then, I was pretty sure I wasn't remembering it for the right reasons. The way Hoshi barely fit in those Jeffries tubes, the way her clothes just happened to snag in such a way that they slid off. This sequence was the only reason I wanted to see this episode 3 times. But watching it now, photonic farts of Feklar between this and Clockwork to Paul, it seems like they're bringing somebody's Enterprise fanfic to the screen.
You're just mad that it wasn't yours.
Shut up. My point is that watching a show just because you have a thing for one of the characters is all sorts of problematic. But let's face it, that's what kept Voyager on the air from season 4 onward, and it's what Paramount was going to do to try to save Enterprise. And damn it, it worked. Star Trek has always prided itself on being progressive. And in the right context, sex appeal can be empowering. But this scene and the way Hoshi reacts to being seen naked, that's not what this is. Even before this scene, 22-year-old me wondered why T'Pol always got the pinup page in Star Trek Communicator magazine. Okay, sure, if she was in the mood, a Vulcan woman would be fun. For 36 hours. After that, the honeymoon phase is over, at which point she'd go back to pretending you don't exist. For the next 7 years. Somehow, the playful, compassionate, emotionally open human is portrayed as having a much less active sex life than the cold, off-putting woman who thinks culinary training doesn't go far enough. Which to me makes very little sense. Yeah, Hoshi could be socially awkward at times, but that's part of her charm. Or maybe that's just me. Someone like Hoshi you could have a mutually enjoyable conversation with, or spend an afternoon at the zoo, maybe go bowling or play D&D. Stovokor forbid that should happen. The few times the writers let Hoshi be a sexual being, she was supposed to be so good in bed that even aliens from planets who claim to have invented hedonism found themselves better educated and overwhelmed by the experience. 43-year-old me has realized 2 things. 1, the time they implied Hoshi beat the shit out of someone for besmirching Archer's reputation as captain aside, they made her the definition of the girl next door, bad bookworm, and sexy librarian trope. Combine this with the fact that she's Asian and, well, if it's not handled just right, that could come off as racist. 2, social awkwardness is an interesting quirk to give a character, but maybe not something Starfleet should be looking for in a communications officer. Having said all that, we'll never have to speak of the fact that there's a really compelling character hidden somewhere in Hoshi Sato, and how the Enterprise writing team, led by Rick Berman and Brandon Braga, let her down time and time again.
Yep, because the episode you're reviewing in part 2 is Vanishing Point.
Ah,
What's the ongoing plot of this show? Again.
A mysterious benefactor from the future is giving the Suleiman gene modifications and advanced technology they need to survive as galactic nomads in exchange for doing a few at-work assignments for their new friends.
That seems awfully familiar.
I am sure it is a total coincidence.
Wait. Have you been modifying my genome? No.
Of course not.
Because I've been rewatching old episodes, and I don't always have a consistent voice. Though it may have been that damn COVID.
It's nothing. Now get in your brand new cell ship. I have a job for you.
Now?
Yes.
You sure. Because the goons and henchmen, I mean, Persons Union, says that if you skip my mandated hour-long break every 4 hours, that counts as double overtime.
Fine. You can get to it next time.
I wonder what Gizmo is dreaming about.
Like and subscribe.
And remember, to really help this channel grow, visit patreon.com/ParodyErrorFilms and become a patron today.